Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Come join me, heading back into the world of darkness. I hope you're ready. It's Werewolf The Apocalypse time. We got another tribe to talk about today, the Get of Fenris. So take my hand. Stay in your Hamid form. Make sure your glaives are close and Silver's a little far away. I, Dracovin, will be leading you back to the world of darkness and Werewolf The Apocalypse. And talking about the Get of Fenris today, where are our sources? Well, before I do that, I do want to preference some things, just a little bit part of this intro, that I will be covering everything up to W20. Now, as of the time of this recording / publishing of this video, W5. And W5 is pretty much a different continent. I think that's the easiest way to talk about it. They took it as that, and there's a lot of stuff related to it that I will have to do a separate video talking about, because I do have a copy of the book that I got. I want to read through it. But keep in mind that I will not be talking about that. This is older stuff. This is traditional stuff. I have my opinions on W5 from just what I've read about summaries of it, and a little bit I have managed to read, but maybe it'll change my mind. D5 didn't. Probably. Books! There's a bunch here. Of course, you can go for the core rulebooks as a great place for any kind of source. It provides a lot of basic information for Werewolf, always, and a lot of the basics of most of the tribes. The same could be said to the player's guides. Those are also a great source. It expands upon some of the stuff. In this case, the Dark Ages does provide a good view of the evolution of the Get of Fenris history. That's one of the reasons I included here. And of course, the two tribe books from the different editions. The tribe book, Get of Fenris, and Get of Fenris tribe book, it's just different editions and of the book. Any of these will provide you a picture, but again, as time has gone up into W20, things have refined, things have gotten, changed. We've understand and made it more modern. So looking to the 20th anniversary of any kind of these things would be your best bet for the most up-to-date, the most in line with modern sensibilities too. Keep that in mind that sometimes in the older editions, there's stuff which is less appropriate nowadays than it was then. Mixed bag whether it was as appropriate back then too. Anyway, here's the Get of Fenris, their symbol at the very least. They are a member of the Gara Nation. Their totem is Fenris. They're sometimes called the Fenrir. They are a tribe. They are warriors. That is their creed more than anything. Be warriors. And mercy and compassion tend to be very low for most of them, but they also look at themselves as great heroes. So it's that kind of juxtaposition of no mercy or compassion, but we're great heroes. And so a lot of their more violent nature has been shocking to a lot of the Gara Nation. So it's a very interesting situation that they are in. A juxtaposition of two ideas that have clashed in their people for a long time. We will get into depths of it, but we probably want to start with their history. Well, when we talk about their history, we have to look at the mythological history first, that they believe. Because their original history, as they believe it for a group, for a tribe, is deep in Norse mythology. Now, I will say, not all Gets, at least by original blood, and from their kinfolk, come from Scandinavia. But from Norse tribes, Scandinavian tribes, Germanic tribes, in that northern European area, they originate. And this connection to Norse mythology does exist within them. The idea, though, is that humans got it wrong, and who cast great Fenris as in the role of a monster, basically. Fenris wasn't a monster, but a great hero. So according to this, Fenris was an Ahroun of the first pack. Drawn to battle against the Great Worm in the northern reaches, he refused to bring offspring to the world. He could find no mortal woman that was strong and pure enough to be worthy of his mate. In battle against the gigantic Jotun, though, he beheld the first woman that ever catch his attention, giantess Sigyn, of the Vanir people. He pursued her to there, and proposed to her. Sigyn was already betrothed to a frost giant, and the great Fenris basically challenged the giant to a duel. After a long and hard battle, he was victorious, but fell unconscious. He was nursed back to health by Sigyn, who tested her honor, wisdom, courage, before taking her as a mate. So he then even tested her after that. From then on, Sigyn bore Fenris 3 sons, Garn, an unrivaled Skald. I'm going to butcher this one. Rabjorn, heir to the father's fighting prowess, and Frode, whose wives among them. Of these three, the Get of Fenris, named the Fenrir, during these days will be born. So it's sort of like it's the tale that these three are the birth of the tribe. Fenrir at this time. Now there is also tales from other tribes that the Get are descended from a line of Silverfangs, and they see that as propaganda and lies. Again, you know, mythological hero. What's the real story? You know, is the fact that their original Fenris could have been maybe not of a Silverfang variety. Maybe. There's a lot of questions that it's mythological, where the truth lies, where it doesn't. That probably is up to Triburan at this point. Now, beyond the mythological, we do have some early history of the early wars. We know that, again, the Fenrir, as they were at the time, Northern Europe, their kinfolk were Germanic, Scandinavian, Norse. At first, they didn't support the Imperium because they basically didn't want to mate with a race of victims. They did adopt the practice eventually, and they become viciously effective at holding human tribes under control. In the War of Rage, they regarded it as a matter of hierarchy. They were the strongest of the children. Again, battle prowess and the other chafing Greeks were subordinate to them, and they put their cousins in their place, and that did by a lot of slaughter. So, yeah, so a lot of changing Greeks were decimated in battle, or no one left with them. The modern Get of Fenris do accept that this behavior was basically unworthy of guys' defenders, but they're not necessarily fully apologetic. They're just like, we got into a fight, we won, you know, and they kind of call like a, yeah, we were wrong, but you were wrong too, kind of thing. And they feel like both sides should forgive for the true apologies. You know, when the winning side kind of genocides you a little bit, I don't know if that's really a thing, but, you know, it's the Fenris. Anyway, we get to the Bronze Age. We still have minions of the worm that creep the earth that had survived the Ice Age. The Fenrir repopulated their groups, the protectorates, strengthened the wild, had alliances with the Fae, especially the trolls. During this time, they had a capital cairn of Heimhalla in the Earl Mountains, and residents of the Vanir and home of the Fenris and Sigurd. The Fenrir of Halheim were locked in war with the Jotun Kingdom and the Aesir Kingdoms. Valhalla was led by Odin, who, again, isn't really God, is a power figure. There's also a vampire that could be named this. A lot of questions there. And had a brother Loki Skywalker, who became Loki Falsesayer, who ruled both Valheim and Utgard. Loki enticed Odin to make war with Halheim, showed him fake visions of Fenrir planning to invade. Odin attacked. Fenrir basically won the campaign, but it was a lot of damage. There was 2 traitors, Freak and Greed, and Odin managed to break the defenses, slaughter the kin of Fenrir. Sigyn basically was the one that sacrificed herself to save the heart of the cairn, and what remained of the structure collapsed. So they won, but at a cost. The surviving Fenrir, led by the great Fenris himself, vowed revenge and set westward into modern Scandinavia, and founded multiple cairns during this time. There was a lot of infuriation in the tribe, the stories of their kin, basically, talking about them, but they accepted it. They didn't want to break the compact. Basically, we don't battle amongst each other. They focused on battle against Odin in his 8th year. In the Battle of the Fimbulwinter Sept, Fenrir called upon the essence of great Fenris, allowing him to walk the mortal realm in flesh. Great Fenris ripped the Galu god's armies and defeated him. And a young Danish Fenrir, Get of Fenris, slayed Grendel, became known as Beowulf, and his acolytes became under Jarl of the tribe, and he would be basically the future name of the tribe. So it was during this entire battle they summoned the great spirit of their ancestor. This one person basically battled greatly. Yeah. All right, the Dark Ages. We're almost done early history. There's a lot of stuff here. Now we actually have a little bit more less legendary, more stuff happening, but it is still kind of legendary. Having trouble climbing up there? Keeps having trouble climbing. The Get followed Vandal and Visigoth south against the Roman Empire. had battles against them. Some of the rites of passages have been developed against strategies against superior forces during that time. The Fenrir fought with Fianna against the Silverfangs and Wanderers of Men who tried to protect Rome. And when Aulic sacked the city in 410, the Fenrir had taken a presence in all nearby parts of the former empire. They led expeditions to new places that Gaia could protect. They followed their Viking king to Britannia and fought with the Fianna and the Silverfangs that were there. Some reached the Pure Lands in Newfoundland. Others founded the near Sweet Camp. Talk about. They fought against the corrupted White House. They blamed the Fianna for their fall of these cousins. They saw them as weak. They invaded Ireland and tested their brethren's defenses, tried to take their cairns because they thought them weaker. And it took hundreds of years for that one to see a truce, because they're like, hey, you know what? We've been fighting each other for a long time. We should fight our enemies. They traveled with their kin, reaching far south as Constantinople during this fight. And it's during this time the others try to give them the title Get, after Get of Fenris. Kind of trying to bring shame. But the younger Get accepted this, basically seeing the heroism of who would be known as Werewolf and standing better near than Get. So they became the Get of Fenris. Basically, they took this thing that was supposed to be an insult and took him. And eventually Fenris returned to fight Odin, took him to the Ural Mountains. The Fenrir had turned against even though the Fenrir had turned against Great Fenris during this time. Among them was Tyr, who lost his hand in a struggle. It was basically eradication of Odin's army, but it caused Great Fenris being banished to the other side of the gauntlet, bound in silver trains that prevents him from entering the Near Realm or the Gaia Realm. In the aftermath, the tribe decided to leave the human nations alone, focusing solely on battling the worm and his minions to make Great Fenris proud. So basically, the age-old war against Odin and maybe mortals and other stuff and going on finally ended at the end of the Dark Ages. So we get to the Victorian Age and to the modern nights. The Get of Fenris headed to America. They saw corruption and incompetence, and Garrow weren't able to help take the tide. They saw their cousins from there as weak, outed them from their cairns to safeguard them instead. So it has a lot of conflict with the three tribes of North America to this day. The Croatians have been acknowledged by the Get for being honorable and capable fighters, so they've made peace there. The Uktena are respected for their port and rights that bound Great Banes beneath the earth, so they've been doomed. But the feud against the Wendigo and the Get still continues. So, of the three that were started during this Victorian Age, because they moved in and were like, we're better than you, kick you out, they've made peace with two of them, than the other, they're just not. Now we talk Europe and getting into the modern age, because, the Get have been involved with European conflict and the continent. The Great War, the uprisings of Banes. Get has fought Get during this time. Others serving the interests of the worms, accusing each other of it. After the Great War, it only got worse. There was the movements in Germany, the Nazi Party. And there were misguided Get who went to the other side, basically, so to say, and saw some of their ideas as connecting with their own lore. The idea of the things like the Ubermensch. And yeah, others believed that these actions were heretical against Gaia's purpose for Garrett. Just battling the worm was all the Garrett should strive for, not adulation of humans. And so Get fought Get again during the Second World War. This time with the entire tribe mobilizing on either side of the conflict. Until those that opposed the Nazis won, and the European side of World War II ended. In the aftermath, the Get hunted down every last surviving traitor or sympathizer with Nazis, including entirely one of their camps, the Sword of Heimdall. One of their greatest heroes, Golgon Fangfurs, led the Amazon War, and numerous Get traveled to the Amazon to prove themselves. Golgon even made overtures of peace and cooperation with the Amazonian Fed. The Get were also involved in the destruction of the Seventh Generation, and in 2001 the tribe eradicated the Thule Society. All organizations. The Thule Society, the Seventh Generation being related to worm stuff, Thule Society being covered for Nazi mistakes that formed post-World War. So yeah, they've still continued to fight these groups. Even after all these events, the tribe met in Hall at Uppsala as the Red Star dawned in the sky, and during the move, they proclaimed that Ragnarok, the apocalypse, was coming, and that they would get ready to face it. This leads us into the storylines of the various books. And yeah, it's kind of where they are. And we can see that there is a difficulty. Now, organization. Basically, they are led by the strongest local member. If you wish to obtain a higher rank, you have to beat your opponent in a challenge. Trial moots are full moon affairs, beginning with a vicious gauntlet running to determine who's worthy to participate in the rites of the tribe. Brave Renown entails bloody runes carved into the werewolf's hide. Even mystical rites dealing with spirits are ritualized combat between right master and spirit, as often known. Their belief in the afterlife reflects Valhalla, the grand battlefield relating to awaiting heroes. Now, when we look at them as a group as a whole, they're split into camps. It's less often due to divisions of individual roles and duties, and more common along lines of individuals' particular intolerance, possibly hatreds, beliefs, in a lot of ways. And oftentimes those beliefs are very set in stone, regardless if they are well educated. Basically, one group focusing on the core tenets of Fenris philosophy is unwilling to be distracted by the presence of somebody or something that a fringe element might feel is unworthy, intolerable. And so a new camp is born that splits them out. And this splattering along lines can be due to various prejudices or thoughts. And it is not to say that our camps are all bigots or intolerant. There is definitely this idea sometimes that reflects along a lot of them. Especially older camps. Newer days, things are beginning to change and are beginning to evolve with modern times. It's just taking a lot. It's very old school thinking a lot of ways, and those thoughts that brought them, a group of them along the wrong directions, didn't go away. They just felt like they took it too far. The World War II group, the ones that went with Nazi Germany, were taking things too far, but some of that mindset still is in the game. That's an unfortunate thing that is being developed out today. You know, we'll talk about this with some of these camps here, but there are some things that none of them will tolerate. Don't pray punch. That's still a major one. Also, hatred of corrupt war leaders, cowards, or those that are basically white families who eat their nuts. All those things are major intolerances for them that are good intolerances to have. So, let's talk about the camps, though. There are a number of them that we know about. Valkyries of Freya is one that has always fought for an equal standing of women within the tribe. It's coming from a mixture of male domination and stuff, but it's this weird thing that a lot of Fenris scorn this camp. They see things in a very negative light. This is just going to be basically, you know, they want you to prove yourself by might, taking what's yours by right, rather than actually saying something about it. You know, they feel like it's not good. It's very sexist. We'll look at some of the other Fenris again. But the Valkyrie have maintained themselves that they are important to basically breaking many of the human precognitions and roles of females within society. They do clash with the Black Females. The Hand of Tyr are those that have turned their attention to fighting the worm's influence on humanity. They target the worst of the worst people. So, very violent criminals, terrorists, rapists, molesters. Yeah, that's the people that the Hand of Tyr takes care of. The Fangs of Garm are basically a group that see the Get of Fenris as an important part of the entire Garu nation. They see the apocalypse coming, and they understand that though the Get of Fenris may be leading the charge, they alone might not be able to face all the forces of the apocalypse without the help of the other tribes. All of them are defenders of Gaia, and they want to mend the bridges with those other tribes so they can stand together, because together there is no chance of defeat. Maybe, if alone, there's a chance of victory, but basically it's tactics, it's intelligence, it's, using mind. We have this strength, we should unite together. Mjolnir's Thunder dedicates them to pure worm fight at any cost. They execute all other activities to dedicate them to the world. The rest of the tribe basically looks at them as homicidal maniacs that just go straight for it and are, gonna get themselves killed. They're not looked at very well, but they're just dedicated to it. let's talk the glorious Fist of Woden. Because, great group. You know, I'm not going to lie, a lot of Get of Fenris groups are not good. Some of them are, others not. They believe the eradication of mankind is the only thing that can save Gaia. Humans are the greatest vector for the worm, and in order to curb it, they should be eliminated. Yep. That's a great plot. Now we do have to talk to Sword of Heimdall, because it was mostly slaughtered off. But it's not gone. The Sword of Heimdall, which I mentioned, which was eradicated as part of World War II. Well, they formed after the American Civil War. Basically, out of a lot of the supremacy that came out of the South, they connected up with that. So, yeah. They sought to cleanse originally, the way they put it, cleanse the tribe of impure elements. You have to think that a tribe isn't just necessarily blood. There are others that are always adopted into the tribe and become members of it and then add their bloodline to it. Tribes are not, they usually have an origin in a specific culture or perhaps a specific region, but because, again, intermarrying, spreading, that kinfolk can travel to lots of area, that even though others can be adopted into the tribe, we can see a tribe grow and go beyond its normal boundaries. Culturally, it remains the same, but bloodline, it changes. And so, a lot of other groups were seen very negatively, basically. People of African descent, Asian descent, Native American descent, and various other indigenous groups. This group was very bad against them. Eventually, they even went even more extreme. And lupus, wolf-born werewolves were seen as females, other Garu. These were very extreme ideas. And they had an unfortunate surging in the 1930s, post-World War I, pre-World War II. Remember, I said, there's a lot of groups that went with the idealisms of Nazis, and this is the group that kind of went with them. But they did get nearly eradicated. It's not to say that there aren't maybe some still members around, but they are extremists, and it's hard to say. But it is a very large black stain on the Get of Fenris. Sword of Heimdall will probably remain for you. There are now two other camps which are more legend than reality, or maybe they're real, maybe they aren't. Ymir's Sweat, which I mentioned, is a bloodline, theoretically, that is rumored to descend from Fenrir, who traveled to northern Canada, along with the Vikings, and interbred with the kind of Wendigo and Croatians. Whether that camp still exists or not, they keep it a secret. And the final one, which is more the rumor than fact, is Loki Smile, which is said to be this group that controlled the tribe from the shadows, communicating via storm spirits and hiding from the rest of the tribe. Again, what truth is there to that? Maybe some, maybe none. Let's talk about the culture. Because surprisingly, there is some actual culture to the Get of Fenris. Yeah, it seems like it's very warrior culture, very Viking, but without a lot of the religious aspects of the Viking culture, or cultural aspects of it. It's very warrior culture. I think that's the best way. Just warrior culture. So, the primary focus is heroism. Act against their enemies, particularly the worm. There's no cowardice, there's indecisiveness amongst the Fenrir, and retreat's not in their options. The Get of Fenris is a very selective tribe when choosing members. Here's an important part about it. Potential Fenrir must prove themselves to the rest of the tribe, even if they're born into it. So again, I talked how, yes, you can be born into the Get of Fenris, but even if you're being adopted into it, regardless, you have to prove yourself. The rite of passage is brutal, it is bloody, it is one of the more dangerous rites of passage any cub of a tribe has to face. And even after you've passed, you're testing your battle skills, ability to subscribe. Basically, in the olden days, weaker cubs were banned. In more recent times, though, at very least, if you fail in all the tasks that you're doing, not passing the red passage, but maybe you fail another test afterwards. But regardless, if you're seen as weak, not worthy of the tribe, you're handed over to another one. They also do practice some belief in in blood for worthiness, in a little bit of the being of pure blood, basically. A pure lineage of shapeshifters. There are others that practice this. It's a thing that maybe talk about at different time, but they do sometimes practice. It's a thing in certain tribes. Anyway, let's talk about female members. It's been a mixed bag about this. There has been some extreme harshness towards them in past times. It seems that they do change with the times, depending on the cultures they're connected with. Depends on how they're treating their female members. In the last century, though, their female members, have proven themselves heroic and fierce in battles as their tribe's male members. Basically, they feel like it's been a mixed bag of basically ideas of human indoctrination has kind of led a lot of directions on how they've been treated. And the tribe as a whole doesn't want to lower their standards. But since attitudes of mortals have also changed, they feel like women being more self-confident has helped them, be able to stand up and show that they're great leaders. It's sort of like that thing of, you prove yourself, but, you have to have the confidence to be able to stand up and do that sometimes. And perhaps in old ages where the idealisms, especially from human societies, kind of put down many women, they didn't have a lot of chances to rise up to there because they didn't let themselves, to a degree. Again, it's a very difficult situation because it's a society that doesn't allow for very easy passage. It's an idea that they want you to stand up for themselves. It's a mixed bag. I think that's the way that they're kind of looking at it. Stand up for themselves. I'm not necessarily agreeing with their way of thinking, but it is a good bit of self-confidence than anybody else. I'm just going to say that. It's that things are getting better for women or females in the Get of Fenris. They're being shown more chances and allowed to have more chances to prove themselves as great as warriors as their male counterparts. And I think that's the important part about all this, is that they are the same great warriors. And they deserve that position. They've earned it now. The tribe does have a reputation for cruelty and intolerance. I'm not gonna lie. There is, a big, heavy reputation of that. I talked about the goddamn Sword of Heimdall. But, incorporating compassion and kindness into the cultural creed has been happening modern days. They've begun to see that their strength is a gift from Gaia, and they have a responsibility to protect the weak with it. And those that dare bully the weak are therefore cowards, the lowest order, undeserving of life. It's the thing that we have strength, we're in our position, we're in our strength, but we have to prove it with not by bullying another, but by protecting those that cannot be protected because they are weaker than us. It still is the same kind of idealism of strength in their culture, but it's going in a better direction. Again, this is a sign that modern Get is improving. We can see their racism, sexism, all kinds of isms. I mean, honestly, we had freaking kinfolkism in a way. If you were born of a wolf, you were seen as lesser by certain groups. This is a lot of bad isms in the Get. Granted, they got much of it, but they still have to eliminate a lot of it because it's not putting them in the best light and not allowing themselves to grow as a culture. It's a mess. The Get of Fenris are a mess. It's a mess. Cairns they have control over: a Sept of the Anvil Claven, Arik Axe Sept, which is in northern Russia, a set of the Blood Fist, which is in the black parts of Germany, a set of Fafnir's Brood on the Cove of the Baltic Sea near St. Petersburg, Sept of the Harrod Sky, Sept of Luna's Forest Glory, Ship Fiana, Cairn of the Sentinel in the Adirondack Mountains in New York, and Fimble Winter Sept in Vancouver. Politically, Get of Fenris do very little politics in the Garu Nation. They really just want to fight the worm and worm incursions and stuff like that. But they do see the waning strength of the Silverfangs and believe that maybe a new alpha for the nation could be used. Someone who could command the Get more efficiently. Maybe a Get. I'm just saying, Silverfangs, you're not doing very well. Now, religiously, though, a common practice with them is the recitation of skalds, epic pasts of Garu, who prove themselves as heroes. Most believe in fate. They believe they're destined to die fighting a worthy cause. They revere the triad of Edda as the Weaver, Malthier as the Worm, and Jorgamander as the Wild, and Jorgamander as the Worm. The Weaver keeps the Worm at bay, while the Worm devours Edda's strands to keep them from entangling the entire Wild, and dissonance comes from Edda named Jorgamander, trapping it in a form rather than the force of nature. They believe it's the Get's duty to destroy Jorgamander's physical form during Ragnarok so its original balance can be restored. Glyphs used by the Gaur Nation, well, the Get used a rune system derived from Farthrak runes to describe their fetishes. In addition to those, they're used for foretelling futures via rites, and they also have a unique weapon, Jarl hammers. They use that instead of traditional grand claves. But that is indeed the Get of Fenris. The Get is an interesting group, because as I talk about them, they are a very difficult group in a lot of ways. It's interesting to see, because we can talk about these things very historically, in a lot of times, that a lot of these very negative, very bad elements are in them. And yes, as a group in a storyline, they fit that bill. But certainly speaking, there are ideas about them that would be appealing to players, and most players that don't want to take paths like this. It means that this modern evolution of Get is important because it is the kind of thing that happens. You either evolve with the times or you die a lot of times. And sometimes that dying can be kicking and screaming and cause a lot of problems for everybody else. But at very least, the Get of Fenris can see that there are needs for changes to become a different kind of group. And I think it's reflecting upon their darkest times that maybe these modern Get can see that, a lot of the attitudes of old Get of Fenris that were in there, probably because of old conflicts in various places, has led to a lot of this, issues. Just look at what happened in World War II. I'm sure plenty of the modern Get look at that and be like, ooh, yeah, we have to reevaluate how we look at things. Yeah, we really do. That's the worst of us. It's the worst of us. And it came out, and it turned against us. It maybe didn't try to embrace the worm, but it ended up siding with it. That's the problem. And if we are that direction, we're the problem. We are great warriors. We understand our strength. We must now use our strength properly. We must understand. We must be better. Granted, that's probably not all of them. Probably not some of the elders. But maybe the future of Get of Fenris is in the younger, in our modern times. Because, remember the group I talked about, the camp that's like, hey, we should probably work together. Fangs and Garm. They understand men bridges. They're probably more of this better, improved attitude. I will leave things here. The Get of Fenris is an interesting group to talk about in general because they are baked in a lot of very negative connotations in a lot of ways. And this is kind of where I want to get into. I feel like they're taking even more extremes in the darker paths in W5 from a little bit I've read about. But I do want to read that myself to see how they're really treated. It's one of those things that I always want to see that a good World of Darkness story mixes hope and despair. And especially in a werewolf story, the despair is it's an unwinnable battle almost. That it's a battle that you may never win, that's always going to be the next battle coming. But the hope is that you can have some victory. You could hold things off for another day. And I think that's the kind of idea is there is a redemption for the darkest points of this tribe. That they will not fall into things that lead them astray and towards the worm. Hey, the worm brings about hatred a lot of ways, and corruption and dark things. Turns out those aren't good. So yeah, I did hope you enjoyed this dive today. Remember, check out all my links, my schedules up on Discord, Twitter, /X, and my YouTube page for when I'm recording and uploading. Remember to do all the support things, like subscribing the bell, all that stuff. Have any of you played a Get of Fenris? I'm curious. Or what's your take on all of this with the Get? Are they a tribe which has a chance of, maybe not like a full redemption, but some kind of redemption? Or are they a tribe that is so steeped in, unfortunately, hatreds that came about, not because of their original legends, but just because of the toxic masculinity, I guess, is a little bit of that. Maybe toxic masculinity is a word for it. I don't know. I don't know the best way to describe the direction they took, other than it's not a good one. Intolerances, prejudices, hatreds, not good to do. They aren't good for you. Healthy, mind-wise. So yeah, I'm interested in also what your thoughts on that. Remember, check out all the other things. I will shout out Crimson Queen Wednesdays at 8 and Disgusting Thoughts Saturdays at 6. Those are two big shows to shout out. Like I said, Discord and Twitter, check those out. And yeah, I'm going to get going. We have more werewolf tribes to talk about, more stuff in the World of Darkness to talk about, and more other topics. Until the next time we chat, we go over these things, we discuss things, I bid you a deep and wonderful farewell.